Breaking news, 20 Trump rally attendees in Tucson, Arizona were hospitalized after attending a Trump rally, diagnosed with chemical burns, experiencing a number of mysterious symptoms. The Trump campaign has confirmed that they are currently investigating the incident.
This is where thousands of people came out to hear former President Donald Trump speak last week. There was a group of 48 people allowed to sit on stage behind Trump throughout the event. They were split into two groups on each side of the stage. One side seemed to walk away without any issues, but multiple people seated near each other on the other side tell me that they had to go to the emergency room after they left the event. Here tonight, for the first time, the Trump campaign is confirming that they're investigating this situation.
No taxes on Social Security benefits for our seniors.
More than 2,000 people filled up the Tucson Music Hall Thursday to hear Donald Trump's first speech in Tucson this campaign as Election Day nears. Some of his biggest supporters were allowed to sit behind him on stage. Supporters like Myra Rodriguez, a former director of Planned Parenthood with a notable shift to being pro-life. In 2016, she sat behind presidential candidate Hillary Clinton on stage at an event. Now she supports Donald Trump. She enjoyed the rally, but once she left, everything changed.
As soon as we left and I stepped outside, I started feeling like my eyes were burning.
At first, she thought it might be allergies. She lives near Phoenix. By the time she got home, it was so bad she decided to go to the emergency room.
The emergency room staff keeps saying, from the triage nurse to the PA, and are you sure you don't get spray anything? Your symptoms look like you were sprayed something.
The News 4 Tucson investigators spoke to her the morning after the rally, Friday last week. That morning, she was nearly blind.
I can't see anything. When I try to open my eyes, it's like a white cloud covered. It hurts. It hurts a lot to open my eyes. I have this cold cloth that I put on and I take off all the time. But this is horrible.
She says the doctors weren't able to determine what exactly caused it. Her initial thought of allergies went out the window when she heard from several others seated next to her at the rally that also ended up seeking medical attention with the same symptoms.
It kept getting worse and worse. My eyes started watering a lot. My nose started running. Then I started feeling my face get really flushed, and then my neck felt like it was on fire. And it just progressed from there.
This Tucson woman, who doesn't want to be identified, was seated in the same area behind Trump with her brother. Both walked away with eye injuries and sought medical attention.
I was all focused on my eyes. My eyes were red like hell, It's like, it just like unbearable. You just couldn't. I couldn't handle it. I just couldn't handle it.
Whatever caused it seems to be isolated to the group seated on stage right. Former Congressional District 6 candidate Kathleen Wynne was seated on the opposite side of the stage and says she and everyone she knows seated near her walked away without any issues.
We hope that there's no nefarious actors in this and that this is not a strategic hit for those that are supporting Donald Trump.
Myra reported her injuries to the Trump campaign and says she was told it was being investigated. Myra feels it's crucial for people to be made aware of what happened and what could have caused her injuries.
Obviously, what I would like is an investigation, right? That this does not get away with it.
I want to be very clear. We do not know at this point if a person caused any of this or what exactly the cause could be. We can only speculate at this point, but that apparently is what the Trump campaign is trying to get to the bottom to at this point.
According to the Arizona Globe, approximately 20 attendees, primarily members of the Latinos for Trump group who'd been on stage, reported becoming ill with mysterious symptoms shortly after the rally concluded. Tucson is a predominantly left-leaning city. The event took place at the Linda Ronstadt Music Hall, and apparently Linda Ronstadt was very upset that Trump was speaking there. A member of the Pima County Board of Supervisors had a sign in her yard that basically said "F you MAGA," no more orange, but in Spanish, and it was captioned "Welcome to Tucson." Myra Rodriguez, another attendee who also fell ill and 30 minutes after leaving the rally, experienced burning eyes and a severe headache. By the time she arrived at the emergency room, she could no longer open her eyes. After performing a dye test, the doctor doctor informed her that she had suffered a chemical burn. Days later, she continued suffering from blurry vision and light sensitivity. So the official doctor prognosis is that it was a chemical burn. Were Trump rally attendees potentially the victims of a chemical attack? Was Donald Trump potentially the original target of this chemical attack? Was this a third attempt on Donald Trump's life? We do not know any of that for sure. I want to be clear, we don't know any of that for sure. There's an investigation that is ongoing, but this is incredibly shocking news considering that comes on the heels of a second assassination attempt on Trump just a couple days ago. Recall that after the July 13th assassination attempt on Trump's life, Joey Comparatore, who was seated behind Trump at the Butler, Pennsylvania rally, was shot and killed. Additionally, James Copenhaver and David Dutch were severely injured at the rally. They were severely injured at the rally from gunfire. These are severe injuries that will follow them the rest of their lives. Is it becoming too dangerous to attend a Trump rally? Have we really reached a point in this country where you might lose your life? You might go blind from a chemical burn if you have the audacity to support a former president who by all accounts appears to be the presumptive winner of the 2024 election. These are chilling times, and I encourage everyone to stay safe out there and to protect themselves, and maybe reconsider sitting behind Trump on stage, since it seems like it is a dangerous place to be. Let's remember this all comes days after a second attempt on Donald Trump's life. While the Democrats blame Trump for people trying to kill him and hurt his supporters, they refuse to tamp down the rhetoric. They continue to call him a threat to democracy.
Just to clarify, so you're saying that the president and vice president believe that former President Donald Trump should be toning down his rhetoric?
So I'll say this. President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat that the former president represents to our democracy. He's been clear-eyed about that.
For 2 days since somebody allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump again. And you're here at the podium in the White House briefing room calling him a threat. How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
Peter, if anything from this administration, I actually completely disagree with the premise of your question, the question that you're asking. It is also incredibly dangerous in the way that you're asking it.
So Donald Trump needs to tone down his rhetoric. And by the way, what is his rhetoric? He just says the truth. He says that they want an open border, which they do. Illegal immigration has skyrocketed to historic levels in the last 3.5 years. This is just a fact. They want to reduce wages using massive amounts of cheap labor, and they want votes that are essentially bought off. And of course, the shooter who waited 12 hours to attempt to assassinate Donald Trump at his golf course repeated Democrat rhetoric that Donald Trump was a threat to democracy. And just to show how effective the Democrat rhetoric is at scaring people about Donald Trump, at getting them to think that Donald Trump represents an existential threat to them, their families, and their country, which is what these people have been saying for almost a decade now, should it really surprise us that millions of people out there believe them? Let's see what happened earlier today on C-SPAN, where they had to actually disconnect a caller who believes the Democrat rhetoric too effectively.
Willie, Democrat, good morning.
Good morning. I just want to say I'm a very patriotic American. I did 20 years in the military, 2 tours in Vietnam, wounded in 1966, went back in 68. And I look at myself and think about we were supposed, as a military man, we're supposed to close, kill, capture, destroy the enemy by all means available. And to see we let this man Trump destroy America, and I look at it and say, well, these two people had to step up and take that shot. I'm 83, nothing to lose.
I'm sorry, Willie, you're not advocating violence, are you?
Not violence. I'm talking about defending my country.
All right. Dan, in Louisville,
Not violence, defending my country. He believes the Democrats. They've been saying that Trump represents the end of democracy, that he will be a dictator, that he's Hitler. There were Democrats in 2016 talking about Trump opening internment camps. Democrats Democrat-controlled Hollywood even made an entire show with multiple seasons depicting a dystopian dictatorship with the strong implication that this is our future if Donald Trump is elected. Women aren't allowed to read anymore. There's actual slavery. It's a horrific dystopian nightmare where you don't need to be a genius to put two and two together to figure out what they're suggesting, what the Democrat voters, what they're suggesting. They talk nonstop about Trump being an enemy of women, J.D. Vance being weird and being obsessed with procreation. Actually, in 1985, when the book was actually offered, author Margaret Atwood had in mind religious extremists from the 80s, many of whom actually strongly dislike Donald Trump because they know that he's moderate on social issues as a lifetime New Yorker. But the facts don't matter. The truth doesn't matter. They will say whatever they want to scare the living crap out of people and to get people to resort to violence. And when called out for it explicitly, when asked to tone down their rhetoric, they refuse. They double down on it. Talk about a dystopian future. Hillary Clinton actually supports imprisoning Trump supporters online for disagreeing with her.
Boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence. Because
And of course, Keir Starmer is already doing it in England. They are releasing violent criminals from prisons to make room for political prisoners. The descent into a dystopian dictatorship sounds like yet more projection from the Democrat Party and the Republican opposition to Trump. And this comes after new whistleblower allegations, this time about the latest attempt on Trump's life in Florida. This whistleblower of the Secret Service alleges that the Secret Service apparently failed to account for known vulnerabilities at Trump's golf course. The shooter was able to lie in wait for 12 hours. Senator Josh Hawley is asking for an explanation from the Secret Service. And speaking of totalitarianism, this is Kamala Harris saying, just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible.
Responsible behaviors among everybody in the community, and just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean that we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible and safe in the way you conduct your affairs.
Have you heard from the
responsible behavior?
Dictatorship, dystopian totalitarianism, especially after the vax mandates, especially after the COVID years, this is yet more projection. Trump wants to bolster civil liberties. That's like people like Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, former Democrats, have joined Trump's side and now support him. This is a developing story, and we will definitely keep you up to date once more information is released.